the final score from the Tocker tournament, we didn't win it. I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC. Yeah, we didn't win it. It was great fun, but ultimately the cash was not for us. Although I've got to say, unless I've missed something, I'm not aware of anyone ever saying who the cash would go to. I assume it would go to the players rather than the club. Anyway, never mind that. Our final two matches, which I haven't gone over in the podcast yet, were contrasting and interesting. So firstly, we played Sayward FC, and we were comfortable in that game, 8-1 winners. And then came the match that knocked us out in the last 16 against Conrad and Beasley, the family solicitors. I'm saying that jokingly, to be fair. Conrad and Beasley are two of the significant players for the US. Beasley, 126 caps, both captained the US. Obviously, they're both retired now, but significant players of a lot of experience. They also had Dwayne De Rosario, most cap player, highest scorer in the history of the Canadian international team. So they had players certainly who had played at a very high level. And the thing is for us that it looked like we had it won, I think, really, because we fought back well. We lost the game 3-2, but by the end of the game, we looked to have much more the legs than our opponents did. We finished very strongly. We were controlling the ball. We were putting them under pressure. Unfortunately for us, De Silva, the goalkeeper, who the commentator said is a futsal international for Brazil, was quite something. A portly figure in goal. I know a bit about those. And quite frankly, he was brilliant. He made some great saves in the second half and managed to repel us. So we went into that extra time, fun period, a goal down, but as you saw against Como, deficits don't scare us. We got the equaliser. And at that point, we looked to have much more energy about us. And I felt comfortable that we were going to go through. But we gave away a free kick, a bit of an unnecessary one. George Boyd tracking back into his own half and then shoving a prey in the back when he wasn't really going anywhere. And it was a really nice, slick set-piece move, which resulted in the goal. And we were out because, of course, there's no comeback in that extra added period. But remember, it wasn't anything to worry about. It was a bit of fun, and it was glorious fun. I've got to say that the main thing that came out of that game, for me, was at the end when Conrad was being interviewed and he kept talking about what a wonderful opportunity it was for his players to play against Wrexham and how delighted he was they'd managed to beat Wrexham. And can I say that this maybe is the whole point of this? We've suddenly become a high-profile club in places other than North Wales. Continuing to build on that is fantastic and will lead to us getting more fans, being more popular, raising more money and doing better. And I just think to hear an international player who has played in a World Cup, Beasley, by the way, he's played in 4 World Cups, talking about Wrexham as if playing against them was a major moment and beating a Wrexham team was a major feat. To me, that tells you why we went over there, because our profile is being raised. The commentators on the game described at one point the great experience for the Conrad and Beasley players being on the same pitch as world-class players. Now, I love those guys, the Wrexham legend players, but I think world-class would be pushing it a touch. But the point is, that's the conception that's getting across. In that tournament, Wrexham were maybe the best, most fun team to watch. And I'd say we were on a par with the best teams in the competition. It's just a knockout tournament. It's not fully serious. We did lose Andy Morrell through injury, which is a blow. So, yeah. The fact that it's sort of impressed upon people the notion that Wrexham as a big team is a winning team upon people who maybe aren't that knowledgeable about football and are looking to learn, is good for us because it makes us the first choice again for people. People have made positive memories from watching us, and for that, the Wrexham Red Dragons need to be thanked and given a good clap on the back. I'm ashamed to say I didn't go to the airport to see them arrive back. I'm just so angry at myself. I should have been there with armfuls of roses to strew in their path. Gutted. Well, never mind. Next year, eh? Looking at the individual performance, again, Mark Howard, he's a good goalkeeper and he made a number of great stops. And it was just nice to see that, as he didn't get his place back because Ben Foster came in. I mean, the grace with which he accepted that decision because he wanted what was best for the club was wonderful. But it's still nice to see him, even if it's not real football, in a tournament with a profile and earning kudos because he deserves it. Lovely to see the likes of Carrington, Rutherford, Trundle, Morel in our shirts again, wasn't it fantastic? And I've got to point out as well that the young lads who played, firstly the two Americans, Mirkovic and Cavallo, I mean, they did well, and it was a nice picture on Twitter from Andy Morel with his arms around them, saying how well that they'd done and how proud they were of them, wishing them all the best. And certainly they both spoke really articulately when they were interviewed on the touchline. And yeah, let's hope that they do well for themselves. We need to keep an eye out on those guys. And then, well, I mean, you've got Scott Butler, who is still with us. And again, I don't want to draw too many conclusions from this in terms of football, but it was certainly good to see him getting out there, getting exposure. Maybe some Wrexham fans, if you didn't see the Altrincham FA Trophy match or watch the reserves, that'll be your first chance to see him. And as you can see, he's a decent ball-playing centre-back. Maybe sometimes he was pushed further forwards than he wanted to be. But then, that's the whole point of small-sided games. It forces players to adapt to positions they maybe not used to. And, yeah, he did very well, I thought. If you don't mind me pointing this out as well, look at the Como game, where Cutrone, who, like I said, 2 years ago, I mentioned in the last podcast, was playing in the Premier League and was earning his Italian cap, and who in other matches just looked unplayable, didn't cause us that much trouble after scoring that very quick opening goal. And I think Butler deserves a lot of credit for that, as well as Carrington at the back. They did ever so well. But then the other youngsters, Dan Jones and Louis Lloyd, who we've actually let go, but they've come out with us, and it was great to watch. If you're managing a Welsh League team, are you not looking at one of those two and thinking they can clearly play football? Louis Lloyd, some of his skill up front was terrific, and his finishing, and Dan Jones as well. Hell's bells, he put in proper shifts. The way he drove the game forwards, he hit the woodwork a couple of times, drew good saves at the goalkeepers. Real strike on him. He certainly was a player that people were talking about a lot when he was coming through and were excited about his prospects. I really hope that, he can get a club that will help him to build up to where he wants to be, because he's a class act. Dan Jarvis as well, of course, played for us, and it was good to see him back and getting a few goals in as well. Golden Boot Jarvis, I thought, at one point. And then, of course, those guest players like George Boyd, who's always a good player, wasn't he, as I said in the preview. And also Grimshaw, who's, for some reason, was called Grisham throughout by the commentators. The guy stopped calling Mirkovic Morkov after a bit, but I'm afraid that Grisham continues. Have I missed some of the outs? Probably, and I apologise for that. But it was great fun, that tournament. Really enjoyable to watch. And the players did us proud. Didn't get the $1 million. I don't think that's what it was about. They did boost the image of Wrexham considerably, and the sort of places we want that image to be boosted. So well done to them. Hats off to them. And I hope they enjoy the rest of the summer. Probably just getting over the bumps, the older players that they got. Man, it must be achy. Nice one. So, with a final score of we got to the last 16, I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC.